Speaker, yesterday the junior senator from Mississippi and the junior senator from West Virginia spoke on the Senate floor about Puerto Rico's political status. Because Puerto Rico is a territory and not a state, we have no senators who can respond to these two senators on the Senate floor. So, as the only elected representative in Congress of the 3.6 million U.S. citizens that live in Puerto Rico, I respond now. The senators discussed the referendum that was held in Puerto Rico in November 2012. However, neither senator mentioned that on the first question in that referendum, 54% of voters said they do not want Puerto Rico to be a territory, which means that my constituents no longer consent to the current status. Likewise, neither senator noted that during a Senate hearing on the referendum held last August, the senior Democrat and the senior Republican on the Committee on Energy and Natural Resources agreed that it was undisputable and clear that the people of Puerto Rico oppose the current territory status. Finally, in their remarks yesterday, neither senator acknowledged that in the referendum, statehood received more votes than any other status option, including the current status. In short, the senators' discussion of the historic referendum was clearly deficient. In addition, both senators expressed opposition to the Puerto Rico Status Resolution Act, which I introduced last year in the House and which was introduced earlier this month in the Senate. The two senators have every right to oppose this legislation, which calls for an up or down vote in Puerto Rico on the territory's admission as a state and outlines the steps the federal government would take if a majority of voters favor admission. But to argue, as the senators did, that the bill excludes other options other than statehood makes no sense. A binary vote, by definition, is not exclusive. Those who support statehood can vote yes, and those who oppose it can vote no. This was precisely the format of the votes that led to Hawaii and Alaska becoming states. I asked the senators, do you believe those earlier votes were unfair or exclusionary? In any event, there are now 132 members of the House and Senate who have co-sponsored the Puerto Rico Status Resolution Act and therefore disagree with these two senators' characterization of the bill. Both senators sought to contrast their opposition to Puerto Rico Status Resolution Act with their apparent support for a Puerto Rico-related appropriation that the President included in his fiscal year 2014 budget request at my urging and that recently became law. Under this appropriation, funding would be provided for the first federally sponsored vote in Puerto Rico's history, to be held among one or more options that are consistent with U.S. law and policy and that would resolve the status issue. Contrary to the suggestion made by both senators, a vote on Puerto Rico's admission as a state is a perfectly valid and logical way to structure the federally sponsored plebiscite to be held pursuant to this appropriation. Both senators also expressed the view that the status debate is a distraction from efforts to tackle Puerto Rico's economic and fiscal challenges. This argument is familiar, but it is false. The reality is that Puerto Rico's economic problems are structural in nature and are rooted in the territory's unequal and undemocratic status. No wonder my constituents are relocating to the states in unprecedented numbers. I look forward to the day when the men, women, and children I represent have the same rights and responsibilities as their fellow U.S. citizens residing in the states that the two senators represent. We do not seek special treatment. We seek equality, and we intend to achieve it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.